going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Kevin Jackowitz. This is the Kaged Review, and I wanted to talk about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, my review for the game. I don't always do reviews for games because it's just not really my shtick, but every once in a while I do, and for this one I really wanted to leave a review because this game was really built up coming out of the gate. The marketing was really big campaign for it, and they really tried to sell, how great this game was. And a lot of the reviews for it that I saw were amazing reviews. I mean, you're talking 9.5 out of 10. Very high scores all the way through. And I have liked the Assassin's Creed series, but it's always been a love-hate relationship because there have always been problems with the series, and major problems with the series. The stalking was always kind of boring, very, very bad. Acting at times, the voice acting sometimes is just god-awful. And they really course-corrected some things with Origins. Origins I thought was a very, very, very good game. I absolutely loved it. They changed the whole combat system. The graphics upgrade was very good. And they started to incorporate boss fights in it, which I thought was very cool. It made it feel more like an adventure game like that. And they went into a transition where they went open world, and they went more open world in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So to start out, as soon as you put the disc in, you get this nice sweeping scene of Greece from the view of an eagle, and it absolutely is gorgeous. The rendering, the textures, the landscapes, all amazing. It looks so good. So as far as visually, this game probably is the best in the series. Gameplay. I like the combat structure, and they added some cool new things to this combat system here that I feel really stays true to what they started with Origins and gives it a little fresh feel with the Spartan kick and the charge and some of the other things you can do with the combat. One big problem I had with combat, and it's actually a major issue for me, is when you build up your warrior tree, there's 3 skill trees that you can start to upgrade. And as you do that, building up your warrior, you start getting hunters. And hunters are these guys who are basically contract mercenaries coming to kill you. That's fine if it was going to be 1 mercenary or 2 mercenaries coming at you at a time. Sometimes it's 4, 5, 6. I've had up to 7 mercenaries at a time trying to kill me. That really took away from the gameplay for me. There were some missions where you have a lot of enemies to begin with, and especially if they're a couple levels higher than you are, when you get hunters involved, it literally makes hard impossible, and you die, and there's just no getting around it. Or you spend your currency to pay off the guy who has the bounty on you. Now, here's my thought on that. It really seems like they just tried to think of a way to where you had to buy your booster. I bought the game at $120. The game is $60. So for that extra $60, I got literally no boosts for the game. I was very disappointed in that because you actually did get boosts in Origins. And so this is just Ubisoft kind of going corporate and kind of screwing their fans. It's a way to get them to purchase all these little microtransactions they have for the game. And I played half the game and I eventually had to buy it. And so because of that fact alone, I will not buy another Assassin's Creed game until I've seen it, until I know what the gameplay is like, and until I know I can play it without having to buy all these microtransactions, especially when I've already bought a special edition at twice the price. I'm not a fan of business practices like that, and especially when it comes to gaming. I want to buy the game and be able to play the game. This really doesn't allow you to do that. So that's a bad business practice. Other things that I had wrong with this, were the same kind of things that were issues with the other games. Very bad voice acting at points. And even the words and the lips weren't in sync a lot of times, and it just looked off. The story was pretty cool. I did like the story. And the flip side of that is you can't just play the story. You have to level up. It is structured now very open world, but it's also structured like most open world games where you have to level up. And if you don't level up, you can't play the storyline. And that is a massive change from other Assassin's Creed games, and I am not a fan of that. I like to be able to go in, I play God of War, Uncharted, Last of Us, things like that, where it's kind of linear, but still somewhat open world, where you can play the storyline throughout and just work on the storyline. Here, you can't do that anymore, and that's one thing that they've kind of taken away from the Assassin's Creed games, is the Assassin's Creed games, you had optional objectives you could do, but here, you have to do all the side missions. You basically have to. And sometimes in the game, like, you have to do so many side missions, you kind of forget what's happening in the main story anyway. So again, I'm not a fan of that. I feel like that was a step in the wrong direction. Another thing that I thought was a step in the wrong direction is, in Origins, like I said, they kind of built this adventure game. You had several actual boss fights in the game. Here, you don't really get boss fights. You get one little scene where you have to fight, I played Alexios, you had to fight Cassandra, and that didn't last very long. And you really don't have any structured boss fights in this game at all. And so I felt like that was a disappointment coming off of Origins, because Origins was very good with that. So you have this very cool, very fun game with a very good storyline. Looks amazing. The fighting style is fun, and it's very addictive at times. But there were so many issues I had, like I said, especially with the hunters, that really downed the gameplay experience for me. Like, it really dampened things. It made it so much worse than it could have been. And so I see all these really good reviews, and I wonder how far people really got into this game before they started doing this, because my problems didn't really start happening until really toward the end of the game, mainly in the last few chapters. And that's when I started getting bombarded with these hunters. And it was nothing more than a frustration. So you took away the boss fights and you replaced it with cheap frustration. And a cheap frustration that's aimed at getting people to put more money into your game. And because of those two things, you know, the cheap gameplay and the fact that they're pushing you to get, you know, these booster packs, they've made an extremely long game. Honestly, the longest game I've ever played. I just was not a fan. I like the game. I don't love the game. I really don't. I think it had a lot of potential. I think at the start I really did love the game. You know, visually, just it is stunning. But with some of the things they did here, I can't say that I'm a fan of it. So I'm going to try to be fair, because there were a lot of good things to the game. There's a lot of content, and for people who like that, you're definitely getting your money's worth in the game. I will say that. There is a lot of things to do now. Honestly, a lot of the side missions, you're going to run into some very bad voice acting and some missions that don't really make any sense or have no bearing on anything else whatsoever. You're becoming an errand boy, basically. And so there are a lot of side missions that don't necessarily feel important. But there is a lot of content. There's a lot of things to do in this huge map, absolutely massive world to play in. But I just can't get past the aforementioned problems. So with that in mind, I think I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. I think that's being fair. I think the fact that Ubisoft has now become money-grubbing bastards, that they don't care about making a game that somebody can actually buy and play, that alone takes the score way down for me, because I hate that shit. And I think us as gamers, we're very tired of these microtransactions, especially ones that are forced on us. And when you create a game this big of a map, this large a scale, this long of a story, and you add in the frustration of hunters and things like that, you know, they're pushing as hard as they can without literally making you buy the extra pack just to play the game to begin with. I mean, that would be the next step, honestly. Because I played this game for a long time. So, it's very grindy. If you're not willing to put out the money for it, you can expect a huge grind in this game. Huge grind. And I've heard a couple people online saying, how can you say this is grindy? Like, honestly, I feel like they're just trolling people or idiots, because there is no way that this game doesn't seem grindy to anybody. I've been playing games for a very long time, and I'm pretty damn good at most of them. Assassin's Creed is actually one that, you know, I have my moments with for sure. And it's honestly been the most rage-inducing series to date. And that's part of my disappointment with this game is I loved Assassin's Creed when it first came out, and then it just kind of really went downhill, and then it really reestablished itself, I think, with Origins. I really liked Origins, and if you see me in that gameplay, I'm playing the game and I'm talking about how good they did with it. And in this one, I'm just cussing at the TV half the time because it's frustration. So I honestly feel like Odyssey is a step backwards, and a big step backwards, if I'm being completely honest. I mean, they really started out with something good with Origins, and I personally think that they screwed it up pretty hard here. So that's my take on it. I know people are going to have differing opinions. It did look good. There was fun moments to it, but when you change up the gameplay and just, like I said, you take away these really cool boss fights and replace it with just this cheap frustration, I'm not a fan. I'm just not. It really took away from the gameplay experience for me. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's where I'm at. I'm sticking at 6 out of 10. Like I said, I know opinions are going to vary. Let me know what you guys think about it. I did have a lot of fun with it, and I had a lot of frustration with it. And so that's why it's getting the low score. So that's where I'm at. I hope you enjoyed the review, though. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, and share. My name is Kevin Jackowitz. Kaged Nation, out.